Hello, everybody. According to my clock, we are right at 2 o'clock. So we will go ahead and get started for the ANAB and Qualtrics, what is accreditation and how does it benefit my organization webinar. Um, thank you for everyone who's joining. We may get a few more people here as we get started. Um, This presentation today will be done by myself. My name is Katie Grimm and Natalia Larimer, the Engagement and Program Development Manager for ANAB. We're very excited that Natalia is joining us, but before I get started, I do want to just review a few housekeeping items for the folks. We are recording this webinar, and it will be available on our website as well as via email. And if you have any questions during the presentation, please go ahead and send them into the Q&A or chat boxes, and we will take care of any questions we have at the end of the presentation. We'll go ahead and see if I can't get my slides to progress here. So that is me, my mugshot. I am Katie Grimm, and I'm the sales manager here at Qualtrics. We have a mix of attendees today. So before I introduce Natalia with ANAB, I am going to go quickly through some information about Qualtrics just to give you guys a really brief background on who we are before we dive deeply into the presentation. Qualtrics, if you have not heard of us, is an all-in-one compliance and accreditation management software. We ourselves are actually ISO 9001 2015 certified, and we were founded back in 1993, so over 25 years of helping organizations in the compliance and accreditation space. We are headquartered where I am located today in Blacksburg, Virginia, which is Southwest Virginia, and it is very cold today, but if there is anyone joining from the Midwest, not quite as cold as where you guys are. With that, I will introduce Natalia Larimer. Natalia is responsible for developing and advancing the accreditation programs with ANAB. And prior to joining ANAB in August of 2014, Natalia spent more than 10 years working SCC, where she started in the standards development group and moved to accreditation services, working within the voluntary as well as Canadian and US regulatory frameworks. Her portfolio includes work with industry groups and standards developing committees, as well as delivery of educational sessions on sector-specific programs, accreditation, and international accreditation frameworks. So welcome to Natalia, and thank you so much for joining us today. I will at this point turn it over to you.
Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are, and thank you for joining us today. As Katie mentioned, I will talk to you a little bit about accreditation, specifically laboratory accreditation, and what exactly it is all about and why it matters. So before we get in there, I'll just want to give you a little something about background on ANAB, or ANSI National Accreditation Board. It is fully owned by ANSI. We have offices throughout the United States, Washington, D.C., Alexandria, Virginia, where I am at, Milwaukee, where it's very cold right now, as well as Fort Wayne, actually, that both offices are closed today, and Cary, North Carolina. But we do have staff spread out all over the country, and some outside the country, some of our contractor assessors. We are mainly accreditation and agency, but we do provide some training activities as well. And you see on your screen standards for which we do provide services. So some of the stuff that we will be talking about are for 17025. However, there are a number of others. So today we will go over what is the system operating behind the accredited testing, what it is, how it works, and why it brings value to any industry and end user. Over the next hour, I will introduce you to key players in this process and provide you with an overview of the responsibilities for each one. We will talk about international oversight, dive into what is accreditation, as well as review differences between accreditation and certification. So who are the key players in the international accreditation framework? There's, of course, ISO, the International Organization for Standardization, where it all begins with the development of standards used in accreditation. There's ILAC, the International Laboratory Accreditation Corporation, that provides oversight. Of course, accreditation bodies that deliver accreditation, conformity assessment bodies or CABs that deliver conformity assessment services. And just to note, for future reference, laboratory is just a type of a CAB. What you're seeing on the screen is a diagram that illustrates the hierarchy of the International Accreditation Framework. Each entity on the screen has a specific role and must operate in accordance with the requirements of applicable international documents, such as, for example, ISO 17011 for accreditation bodies. ILAC provides oversight over the accreditation bodies. In turn, accreditation bodies provide oversight over laboratories, which must conform to ISO IC 17025, which is a specific standard for testing and calibration laboratories. Both of the standards are developed by ISO. We will look in detail at each one of these organizations during our presentation. An item of interest to note is that although there are various committees that are involved in the development of ISO standards, specifically ISO standards used for certification purposes, for example, there's only one committee that is responsible for the development of conformity assessment standards. ISO Casco develops standards that are used for accreditation. You see some examples on your screen. ISO IC 17025 for testing and calibration laboratories that we will talk about today. There's also ISO 17020 for inspection agencies, or ISO 17021-1 for management system certifiers. These are just few examples. It is important to remember that just because an organization claims to meet ISO standard does not mean that verification of its operations has been conducted in accordance with the internationally accepted requirements. There are many steps that must be completed before an organization can claim accreditation. One word that you will hear a lot during accreditation discussions or within the industry is something called a scheme. Scheme, or what is also referred to sometimes as an ISO Plus, is a conformity assessment system that includes requirements of ISO standards or standards as a base with additional requirements added. This system could be applicable at global, regional levels, as well as national or subnational levels. For example, requirements for suppliers of a department within the government agency. Schemes are typically developed when the need is identified by a specifier, be it a department within the government or industry sector. On your screens, you're seeing some examples of schemes that you might be familiar with. EPA Energy Star, developed by DOE and EPA, DOD Environmental Restoration, as well as some of the recent ones that, for example, EPA Toxic Substance Control Act title. All of these schemes are based on ISO IC standards, such as 17025, with additional industry-specific requirements added. A similar diagram as we saw a few slides prior, with the exception that this one shows relationship between scheme and the accreditation system. You see ILAC liaises with ISO. The slide is missing error to the laboratories from ISO. As noted earlier, ISO does develop standard ISO 17025 that is used for the accreditation of laboratories. On the left-hand side, you see scheme, which is developed from the industries. And the scheme could have additional requirements on top of ISO for accreditation bodies, for laboratories, as well as for sample or a product. Now that you're familiar with some of the concepts, let's take a look at the international oversight. Or, in other words, who or what gives the accreditation body the authority to do what they do? For the purpose of today's webinar, focus will be on ILAC, the International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation. It is ILAC that is responsible for the international oversight for all involved in the accreditation of laboratory-related programs. There is coordination of work among all cooperations you see on your screen, as well as a similar goal. The main difference is in geographical coverage and scope of recognition of participant accreditation bodies. Just an FYI, for example, International Accreditation Forum, IAF, the accreditation bodies are involved in product, personnel, and system accreditations. Regional corporations typically cover various accreditation fields, but are limited to operation within the region, such as IAAC for Americas. All regional corporations that you're seeing on your screens are part of the ILAC system. But it is important to know that there are other regional corporations, depending on the world where you're located, that are not yet members of ILAC, such as, for example, African region or Arabian regions. ILAC is truly a global forum. It operates in a framework of committees, and these operations are subject to the ILAC general procedures. All of ILAC procedures are publicly available. To ensure truly global approach to accreditation, ILAC links with international organizations such as ISO and IF, as well as industry and user associations. ILAC is a global association of not only accreditation bodies, but other interested parties in the fields of calibration laboratories, testing laboratories, medical testing laboratories, inspection bodies, reference material producers, as well as proficiency testing providers. The accreditation fields identified by an asterisk on your screens are areas recognized under the MRA. It is important to remember that fact because we will discuss what is MRA and its significance later in the slides. For those of you who are interested, ILAC has a great website. It provides publicly available marketing materials for various audiences, such as industry, government, and users. It also provides examples of verbiage that could be used about benefits of accreditation for different types of stakeholders. As I mentioned, ILAC is a membership organization with a number of member categories. Associates, affiliates, and full members are accreditation bodies with different level of involvement. Stakeholders, those are representative of international, regional, and national organizations having an interest in the work of ILAC. That includes bodies such as laboratories associations, association of laboratory practitioners, inspection body associations, purchasing organizations, regulatory authorities, consumer associations, trade associations, to ensure that all the processes and procedures that are developed and pushed down are uniform and work for all the industries. Regional corporations are the ones mentioned in the previous slide, such as EU, IAAC, and APLAC. They all participate in the work of ILAC. However, the category most important to the topic today's webinar is MLA signatory. Why is that? Well, MRA, because ILAC mutual recognition arrangements is an agreement among accreditation bodies for recognition of accreditation and results issued by laboratories accredited by the signatories. Simply put, signatories to the MRA recognize each other as being equally reliable. The MRA provides assurance that oversees accredited organizations such as laboratories, that they all operate to the same standard as those in their own country. It is important to note, an accreditation body is recognized for a specific scope. So for example, an accreditation body could be recognized only for testing, or only for inspection, or few, or all. ILAC website provides information on accreditation body signatory status and associated scopes. MRA signatories are only admitted after being deemed competent through a stringent evaluation process. The evaluation and followed re-evaluation are ongoing and are scope specific. So competence is verified for each scope. Only when an accreditation body is a signatory can it also sublicense the use of ILAC MRA mark to its accredited organization, The ILAC MRA mark is a demonstration of testing being conducted under the internationally recognized accreditation framework. Why does all of this matter? Well, it is because if an accreditation body is not a signatory, there is no evidence or confirmation that it operates in accordance with the international requirements, or that it's technically competent to do what it intended to do. There is no guarantee that AB or an accreditation body has conducted an oversight over an organization, that the accreditation body understands organization's process and can attest to its competence. Accreditation issued by an accreditation body that is not a signatory to the ILAC MRA have questionable value to the industry. For that reason, it is very important to note that there are many industries that mandate accreditation by an accreditation body that is a signatory to the ILAC MRA. ILAC provides global harmonization of best practice, assurance of confidence and uniformity at every level. ILAC facilitates global trade by promoting accredited conformity assessment by working with and influencing key international organizations and industry groups. The ILAC recognition allows accreditation bodies to provide competent and consistent accreditation services around the world. Now that we know what gives the authority for an accreditation body to provide accreditation, let's discuss what is actually accreditation. First, let's take a look at what is the differences between different types of audits. First-party audits are contracted or arranged internally by the organization itself, most often referred to as the internal audit. Second-party audits, done by a customer doing business with the organization, often for approval of them as a supplier or vendor. Third-party audits are done by an independent body, usually for conformity or competence to national or international standards. Accreditation is the third-party conformity assessment with an independent oversight. On your screens, you see a diagram of how accreditation works. Accreditation body provides oversight of a laboratory, who in turn provides testing of samples and products to the end user. The official definition of accreditation is, it is an independent assessment on conformity assessment bodies, which is laboratory is, so organizations such as laboratories, inspection facilities, against recognized standards to ensure their impartiality and competence. Accreditation simply provides assurance to labs customers and industry that the laboratory continuously operates according to the internationally accepted criteria applicable to its scope of accreditation. Accreditation is, of course, delivered by an accreditation body. Accreditation bodies must operate in accordance with international requirements of ISO IC 17011, and depending on the scope of its operation, there are additional scope-specific requirements that may apply. As you recall, ILAC MRA signatories are evaluated for conformance to these requirements. Accreditation body, in turn, assesses conformance of laboratories' operations with specified applicable requirements. ISO 17025 is the base requirement document for testing and calibration laboratories. Only accredited laboratories are allowed to use accreditation symbol of their auditing body or their accreditation body to demonstrate their accreditation status. And if that accreditation body is a signatory to the ILAC MRA, the MRA symbol could be used by the customers as well. To become accredited, laboratories undergo a stringent, detailed assessment process. It begins with the document review, then follows by accreditation assessment, surveillance assessment, as well as a reassessment. There are some special assessments as well, such as an assessment for scope extension when a laboratory requests to add additional test method to its scope of accreditation. There is some flexibility of the accreditation process, and it does vary from accreditation body to accreditation body. However, the process must meet all of the requirements of ISO 17011. The accreditation body's oversight over the laboratory does not stop at initial assessment. Laboratories continue to undergo regular office as well as witness testing by their accrediting body. Every requirement of ISO IC 17025 and other applicable documents are covered. The accreditation body assessors not only ensure that procedures include required aspects, but also verify implementation of each one of these processes. Witnessing is conducted to ensure technical competence of personnel conducting the testing, as well as processes for complaints, appeals, suspension, and withdrawals are also addressed. All aspects of operation relevant to consistently producing accurate and dependable data are verified. Areas of concern and improvement are identified, and a detailed report provided after each visit. Monitoring and follow-up is conducted to ensure facility has taken the appropriate corrective actions. In summary, all aspects of operations relevant to consistently producing accurate and dependable data are verified. Here's an example of a typical ANAB laboratory accreditation process. As I mentioned previously, there is some flexibility of the accreditation process, and it does vary from accreditation body to accreditation body. However, the process must meet the requirement of ISO IC 17011. A customer would approach and request a quote. A detailed quote would be provided. An application would be submitted detailing all the information related to the scope of accreditation. A document review will be conducted and gaps identified. Accreditation assessment, as well as corrective action and follow-up visit. Accreditation decision. Once an entity is accredited, regular surveillance and reassessment cycle begins. So again, the question comes up, why does all of this matter? Well, simply, same as with accreditation bodies that are not signatory to the ILAC-MRA. Laboratory that is not accredited may not operate in accordance with international requirements, may offer conformity assessment services without an adequate evaluation or without any real understanding of the applicable technical requirements. An accredited test result may not be accepted in many industries. Accreditation is what provides the attestation of the technical competency and consistency in operations. Now that we know what is accreditation, why would it benefit for a laboratory to be accredited? Many laboratories operate in isolation to their peers and rarely, if ever, receive an independent technical evaluation as a measure of their performance. Accreditation allows to determine whether work performed correctly and to appropriate standards. Accreditation provides with a benchmark for maintaining competence as well as assesses whether testing is being done correctly. In the case of laboratories with multiple sites, accreditation also provides assurance that each site operates to the same standard and with the same rigor. For manufacturing organization, it demonstrates that the testing of their products by in-house laboratories is conducted accurately. Accreditation is the answer to government and private industry seeking confidence in data generated by the laboratories. It provides assurance in laboratories' capability of producing accurate, traceable, reproducible, and cost-effective data. Testing under accreditation is carried out in accordance with internationally accepted requirements. It builds confidence and reduces risk for consumers. It facilitates global trade. It eliminates cost of retesting and provides access to bids that mandate accredited services. In summary, accreditation minimizes false positive and negatives, reduces costs, provides confidence in the data produced, reduces uncertainties with decisions, it opens up new markets, it provides public confidence, it eliminates redundant reviews, it increases business opportunities, and it provides self-satisfaction. Here are examples of federal entities that are in one way or another are requiring accreditation. For example, U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission, or CPSC, mandates accreditation of laboratories for testing of children products for lead content in accordance with the Consumer Product Safety Improvement Act, CPSCA of 2008. Accreditation of laboratories is mandatory for testing of telecommunication equipment, subject to FCC rules. Details of all these programs are available on the ANAB website. Many new laboratories are faced with a question: does laboratory need ISO 17025 accreditation or ISO 9001 certification? Which one is better, which one is more applicable, and which one will have the best benefits? Let's look at the differences. Accreditation is a third-party attestation related to a conformity assessment body or laboratory, conveying formal demonstration of its competence to carry out specific conformity assessment tasks, testing and calibration in this case. Certification is a third-party attestation related to products, processes, systems, or persons. In summary, accreditation is the higher level of verification. Examples of accreditation standards, as we've talked a little bit earlier, notice they all start with 17. Most accreditation standards are referred to as the 17,000 series. There are a few that are not 17,000, however, for the most part, when you see 17,000 series, it is an accreditation standard developed by ISO-CASCO. On the other hand, certification bodies, which provide certification, use the following standards: ISO 9001, ISO 14000, ISO IC 27001, and there are many others. Unlike certification to ISO 9001, laboratory accreditation uses criteria and procedures specifically developed to determine technical competence, thus assuring customers that the data supplied by the laboratory are accurate and reliable. ISO IC 17025 accreditation is provided by accrediting bodies. ISO 9001 certification is provided by certification bodies, which should be themselves accredited to the requirements of ISO IC 17021-1, which is the standard specifically developed by ISO Casco for accreditation of certification bodies providing certification to management systems. To illustrate what I just have said, accreditation is a higher level of verification. The laboratory is conducting workmanship on testing is why it is important to hold laboratory to the high verification standard. On your left side of your screen, you see ILAC overseeing testing accreditation. ISO IC 17011, standard applicable to accreditation body. ISO IC 17025, standard that is applicable to the laboratory. Certification is overseen by IF. Again, 17011 is applicable to accreditation body. 17021-1 is applicable to certification body. And in turn, certification body uses ISO 9001 to certify organizations. So ISO IC 17025, which is general requirements for the competence of testing and calibration laboratories, is the standard developed specifically for laboratories. So what is the relationship between ISO IC 17025 and ISO 9001 as it relates to laboratories? In the introduction of ISO IC 17025, 2005 version, it states, laboratories that operate in accordance with ISO IC 17025 also operate in accordance with ISO 9001. The newer 2017 version of the standard actually includes an option for laboratory to implement full ISO 9001 system to meet management system requirements. In an attempt to ensure clarity and understanding of ISO 17025 accreditation and ISO 9001 certification, ISO, the organization responsible for standard development for both ISO 9001 as well as ISO IC 17025, IF and ILAC, remember ILAC oversees accredited testing framework, IF oversees certification framework such as certification to ISO 9001. They issued a joint communique that stated, laboratories that conform to the requirements of ISO IC 17025-2005 means that the laboratory meets both the technical competence requirements, which is very important, and the management system requirements that are necessary for it to consistently deliver technically valid test results and calibrations. ISO IC 17025 contents include, of course, you have your table of contents and introduction. Then you have your scope, normative reference, terms of definition, general requirements. You have structural requirements, resource requirements, process requirements, and Clause 8 management system requirements. That's where ISO 9001 requirements come in. It is Clause 8 that gives the laboratory the option of meeting ISO 9001, in addition to all the requirements that are specific to laboratory operations. The operational and technical requirements of the laboratory include, but are not limited to, control of externally provided product and services, sampling, calibration, who is qualified to provide calibration, why certain providers are acceptable and why others should not be acceptable, how to conduct proper sampling, what kind of proficiency testing a laboratory should be doing, of course, the facilities and equipment that the laboratory should have in order to do the testing under their scope of accreditation. And of course, you have your management system requirements that will include document and record control, a management review, customer feedback and improvements, internal audits, as well as the process to address corrective actions. So now that we reviewed a lot of the information, Let's try putting it all together in a couple of slides. At the top of the pyramid you're seeing on your screens, we have ILAC that has its own process and procedures that it must follow. Remember, if you're interested in seeing any of those processes or procedures, they are publicly available on ILAC website. ILAC oversees operations of accreditation bodies that follow ISO IC 17011. It is only ILAC MRA signatory accreditation bodies that are evaluated to the requirements of the standard, as well as other specific requirements depending on the scope of their signatory status. Accreditation bodies oversee laboratories, and accreditation bodies assess laboratories to the requirements of ISO IC 17025. The overall setup is what provides the integrity. At each level, every customer, whether an accreditation body of ILAC or a laboratory of an accreditation body, is considered a direct customer and the overall industry. In summary, repeating what was visualized on the previous slide, ILAC evaluates accreditation body and recognizes accreditation body for a specific scope. Accreditation body accredits laboratory for specific scope. Laboratory conducts testing, and end user relies on accredited testing. It is also important to note that failure to conform with requirements can result in consequences at all levels, such as an accreditation body can be suspended or lose its signatory status from ILAC. A laboratory can have suspension of whole or part of its scope, or completely have withdrawal of their accreditation. When searching for an accreditation body or an accredited laboratory, it is important to remember that all of this information is publicly available. You can look at accreditation body status on ILAC website, or check out the laboratory's current status of operations on accreditation body's website. Look at the scope and make sure that the testing method or standard you're looking for is included in the laboratory scope of accreditation. Again, why does all of this matter? ILAC recognizes accreditation providers' assurance of competence, impartiality, and integrity. It is because of that industries and governments across the globe rely on ILAC-recognized services. No one goes to the doctor who isn't certified for a specialty or obtains a degree from a college that isn't accredited. This industry is no different. Through the entire process, it is not just the operation system that must be in place. At every level, whether it is the ILAC evaluator or an accreditation body assessor or a laboratory technician, these people must be competent in the work they do. Additionally, to maintain integrity, heavy emphasis is placed on requirements for independence and impartiality. For example, decision on recognition of an accreditation body by ILAC or decision on accreditation of a laboratory by an accreditation body are always independent from the evaluation or assessment activity. This means that whoever is conducting the assessment of a laboratory, for example, cannot make decision on the accreditation. Assigned evaluators or assessors must declare any possible conflict of interest for each job they are assigned to. And an organization always has the right to appeal or complain, not only to whoever oversees it, but further up the ladder. ILAC recognized accreditation provides competence, integrity, impartiality, and independence. With that, I thank you very much for your time today, and I pass the slides back to Katie.
Thank you so much, Natalia. I appreciate it. So I believe I have control, and you guys saw us switch over. I will have Natalia's contact information up at the end here in just a few slides as well. We did just want to highlight a little bit about Qualtrics for you all. As Natalia covered a lot about the accreditation process. Where Qualtrics comes into play is helping to manage a lot of those different pieces. So here you'll see a couple bullets from what our customers basically say a compliance software like Qualtrics helps them to do, which is, centralize data, reduce prep time, keep better organization, which allows for more visibility and encourages that culture of quality. Going through the process of becoming accredited or certified is permeating culture throughout your entire organization. So we'd like to highlight kind of how Qualtrics helps to do all the items Natalia just covered. At a high level, this is a quick look at the 4 specific ways in which our software helps support organizations. Workflows is one I'd like to call out, which are a critical piece of it because they are truly made powerful by leveraging other aspects of our software, like the document management where you can store SOPs, or like testing and training where you can do proficiency testing like you heard Natalia talk about. Workflows is really any automated process. So Natalia mentioned a few of these types of processes when she covered the management system requirements. So things like corrective actions, customer feedback, internal audits. Those are all the types of things that our workflow engine allows you to process, all on a reportable platform. And we like to be clear that for our software, it's not modular. It is a complete offering because we don't see a way that you can do true overall quality without all of these various components. So a few of our customers shared here, these are actually shared customers with ANAB. So we thought we'd highlight some of those specifically, but across both laboratories as well as manufacturing type organizations under those certifications as well work with Qualtrics. So to give you some examples of some of those workflows beyond the ones I've already mentioned, there's a short list here that come pre-populated in your Qualtrics system. We have different sets of workflows available depending on the different compliance pressures you're under. And though these have been created based on our experience with organizations of all types, they can also be completely modified to meet the unique way your company executes processes, which we feel at Qualtrics and have received feedback on is quite unique. One final slide before I share our contact information. Qualtrics does have a users conference, which combines training and networking and a whole bunch of fun with a great theme this year. And we do this every 18 months. So our users conference brings together people we love most, our customers, our team, the product, and also the home of where Qualtrics is based. We include product training for everyone from beginners and prospects of our product to advanced users. We have industry presenters, accrediting bodies speaking, focus groups, and all kinds of different industry roundtables. One of the most bottom line benefits of attending is the thousands of dollars worth of training received when you come to the organization. So I share this with you all if any of you would be intrigued or interested in potentially looking at the Qualtrics Users Conference coming up here at the end of April. So with that, that was a very high level overview of Qualtrics to wrap up. And we again appreciate Natalia going through the level of detail that she did in regards to Qualtrics. We do have a few questions that I will go ahead and take care of that were listed both in the Q&A and in private comments. One was some great feedback that the presentation was great. And it will be available. We will make those slides available online as well as through an email. So we will get that out to folks who are interested in that. We also had a question around if ISO 17025 is applicable for any type of testing laboratory. Natalia, can I kick that over to you potentially to answer?
Sure. ISO 17025 is the most used standard for the laboratory testing as well as calibration. However, if a laboratory is conducting testing for medical reasons, such as diagnostic laboratories, the standard to keep in mind is ISO 15189. That's the standard that's a little younger than 17025, and it's specific for those laboratories that are conducting diagnostic testing.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We have another question, which is there a way to see the actual CrowdTrack software after this presentation? The answer to that is absolutely. We would be more than happy to do any sort of one-on-one presentation for folks and show you how your laboratory may be able to use a product like Qualtrics. So if you would like to take my contact information off this slide and reach out, or I will make sure one of our account executives gets in touch with the person who asked the question. But again, if anyone who didn't ask the question is also interested, we are more than happy to show in-depth dives into the product and how it works. Are there any other questions? I'll maybe give us 30 seconds or so here to see if another one gets typed in. Okay, looks like we do have one in the comments. What's the average time to become accredited? Natalia, I think that would be one for you.
Okay. What we typically see in our, from an ANAB perspective, of course, I do not have information from any other accreditation body on this, but average time, I would say between 4 to 6 months. We do see some laboratories that come fairly quickly. And of course, if the laboratory does not meet requirement, there is a possibility that they'll never become accredited. But when planning, I would say 4 to 6 months would be the average.
Wonderful. Thank you. If there are any other questions, we can absolutely take those via the Q&A here or the chat window. Otherwise, thank you everyone so much for your time today and for joining us for the webinar presentation. We will be getting the link out for the recording hopefully in just a short couple days, and we will have some folks get in contact with people who ask for some more specific information. So thank you so much everyone. Appreciate your time and have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.